Hello and welcome to Traut Media, and today we are going to be talking about how to make a Subaru WRX reliable. And if you own one of these, I'm sure you've heard the jokes about rod knock and connecting rods breaking, but fortunately there's a solution to this, and we can make our cars likely, obviously you can never guarantee it, but we can make our cars very likely to last well over 100,000 miles with minimal to no internal engine issues. There's going to be two main ways of achieving this. The first being preventative parts that help your engine run in a more efficient manner so that rod knock is less likely to happen and the stress on the internals of your engine is reduced greatly. That we're going to get more in depth to in a minute. The other side of this is obviously maintenance and following the recommended maintenance schedule and maybe even doing your service ahead of time. This is going to keep everything in your car nice and fresh. You're not going to be burning used oil that's been in the engine for the past 20,000 miles, because believe me, we've all seen a car that does that. And it's not always pretty. So the first thing that is going to be helping your engine be a lot more efficient is called an air oil separator. And if you've never owned one of these cars with a boxer engine, you've probably never heard of it, and that's because it's fixing a problem that only occurs within the boxer engine. And this is not seen anywhere else. It is only a Subaru thing. This also applies to the STI and the BRZ. And if you can see on this graphic here, I have a picture of the Perrin air oil separator, and hope you like what I did with the text there, air and oil, or you get it. So, what does an air oil separator do? It saves your engine, and the FA20 benefits greatly from this. This right here is a very rough diagram of an FA20 engine that is seen in the 2015 or higher Subaru WRX. Yes, I know, it is very primitive, it is not the greatest thing ever, but I tried, okay? It is enough. So, here's the same diagram labeled, and you can see that we have the crankshaft in the middle, which is going to be spinning the transmission, and that's eventually how the engine gets the power and movement to the wheels. The crankshaft has connecting rods, which connect to the pistons in each cylinder that are going to be moving back and forth. And on one end of this, there's going to be oil on the side of the connecting rod that allows the piston to move fluently within the cylinder. And on the other side, there's the fuel injector, the spark plug, and one more thing which we'll get to in a minute, that's the intake valve. And this essentially, on that side of the piston, with timing created by the camshaft, will create a spark with fuel and air within the piston so that when the piston compresses, an explosion occurs, and that is how the engine powers. Simple engine mechanics here. But why is this an issue? If we take a closer look, what you can see with our piston's horizontal orientation, oil is sitting on one side with the explosion on the other. And generally this is fine, but when we look closer, you can see if the engine were in a V shape, as most V8s or V6s always are, more common engines, gravity naturally keeps the oil in its place and it doesn't ever interfere with the side of the cylinder where the explosion occurs. However, in a flat 4 boxer engine, as these Subarus have, gravity is no longer holding oil on that side of the cylinder, and over time, with the piston moving back and forth so much, oil will eventually seep through. And when this happens, considering that oil is also explosive, both the fuel and oil are ignited. This results in a much bigger explosion, pushing the piston back at a much harder pressure and creating much more force on the connecting rod that has to bear the explosion from the piston. This process is known as detonation. It is essentially when either 2 explosions or one increased size explosion occurs within the cylinders of a boxer engine due to oil seeping into the cylinder and getting ignited. Now, an air oil separator essentially is going to keep the air on the explosion side of the piston and the oil on the connecting rod side of the piston separate, hence the name. This will keep oil from seeping through and keep detonation from happening, thus reducing the amount of times that it happens and creating less stress on the piston and the connecting rod, which eventually can even translate to your crankshaft. Therefore, the internals of your engine will have much less pressure on them. And the air oil separator does this through a series of hoses and filters. Now, the most common ones on the market And the most reputable and reliable brands are the Crawford Performance Air Oil Separator, along with the IAG Street Series and the Perrin. In this graphic, I have them oriented from left to right in both price and ease of install. The price runs to about $350 for the Crawford Air Oil Separator and $450 for the Perrin Air Oil Separator, and the IAG falls somewhere in between. I believe it's like $420 or something. Additionally, I believe all three of them are relatively the same to install. However, they vary wildly in how well the company supports teaching you how to install it. I know I actually went with the Crawford Performance Air Oil Separator because their video on the install was unbelievably easy to follow and easy to watch. I got it done in about maybe 4 or 5 hours. It wasn't the most basic install in the world, but it was definitely doable for someone with minimal engine experience. That being said, the second category that is going to allow us to make these Subaru WRX F820 engines reliable is going to be maintenance. And there's this thing that is your best friend when it comes to maintenance, and it is called the owner's manual. Chances are it's never seen the outside of your glove box, and that is okay. As long as you start doing your maintenance and using this manual sooner than later, you're still going to give your engine a better chance. Inside of your owner's manual, and it may be in a different place depending on whether you have a WRX, an STI, a BRZ, or even a Crosstrek or Forester. Inside, you're going to find something like this, and it is also referred to as your maintenance schedule in your table of contents if you do not know where to find it. And on the very left column here, you can see it shows the maintenance items. So every single thing in the car that needs service, and this doesn't just go for your engine, it goes for the entire car. That being said, the rest of the columns show your maintenance interval by mileage. So every 6,000 miles, it tells you which of these maintenance items need to be either replaced or inspected and replaced if there's an issue. If you follow this, there should theoretically be no issues with the car for extended duration, because it is what the factory and what Subaru themselves recommends that you do. Now, as far as knowing how to do all these things and do all this service, things like swapping your engine oil is relatively simple. However, when it gets into deeper things like swapping brake fluid, potentially replacing a clutch, these are things that not everyone necessarily knows how to do. But thankfully, if you're watching this video right now, then you are on the best source in the internet for learning how to do these things, and that is YouTube. And as I do these maintenance items to my car, which is a 2018 Subaru WRX, I'm going to be posting videos on how to do them. And if I haven't gotten around to it yet, I'm sure there are plenty of videos on YouTube regarding how to do all of these things. Therefore, if you are not in the know-how, you can simply look it up on YouTube, and I'm sure that there are many videos out there on how to do each and every single one of these things. Most of them are relatively simple and can be done by just about anybody. And if not, worst case scenario, most dealerships will be more than happy to do them for you. Additionally, going back to the air oil separator, if you don't feel comfortable doing that install yourself, most dealerships, or at least the ones that I've had experience with, are more than happy to help you install parts like that, because they also know that it's going to help your engine have a longer lifespan. That being said, I think that's going to take us just about to the end of our video, and this concludes how to make your Subaru WRX more reliable. Then again, there are more things that you could do to keep your car reliable, such as not driving it hard all the time or things like that. But as far as the mechanics go, these are really the big general things that everybody should do if you just want to have a good lifespan out of your car. Of course, you can always do more, and there are more complicated things out there. But if you get an air oil separator, which is going to stop that detonation, and additionally, just follow your maintenance schedule and do everything that it asks you to, you should be completely fine, and your Subaru, whether it be a WRX, an STI, a BRZ, or whatnot, should last you well over 100,000 miles. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like on it and consider subscribing to the channel for more content related to Subaru vehicles and my personal Subaru WRX build.